Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Let's face it, bad things happen to good people. Seriously injured in a car accident, trucking accident, injured in a grocery store, or even wrongfully arrested or falsely accused of a crime. Life happens, and when it happens to you, you will need sound legal advice and aggressive representation. That's when you call attorney Frank Walker at 304-413-0179. That's 304-413-0179. Lock it in your phone, text it to a friend. 304-413-0179. Or visit online at attorneyfrankwalker.com.
Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work.
Welcome to Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Let's Talk is proudly presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Let the conversation begin on Let's Talk.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, we're glad to have you here. And I have my two hosts, Lisa Odie and Hollis Lewis. Lisa, today I kind of wanted you, because this is kind of your ballpark here. It's kind of the whole NIL kind of thing.
I wouldn't call it my ballpark.
Well, let's just say I threw it into your ballpark.
It, okay?
You'll own it, okay?
I'll own it.
So give us a little bit of information about, like, what are the numbers of some of the schools? What are they putting out? Give us some of the information that you have.
Okay, so what I've kind of been focusing on is the Collegiate National Championship,
right.
The 12th playoff, the new system that they've implemented this year for the playoffs, and our conversation. It's been kind of an ongoing thing during our during our show is the NIL monies and how it affects different schools and their wins and losses, and just overall how it affects players and schools in general. And so what I did was a little comparison. I kind of looked up. I wanted to know, what I was curious about was how are the budgets of the NIL for specific schools playing out in the collegiate playoffs? Are we seeing the schools that have more lucrative monies available, more resources for their NIL? Are they the ones that are winning these games compared to the schools that have a lower budget? And so when I did a little research, it turns out that pretty much the numbers are on target. Your schools basically that have the most NIL money are in the 14 playoff, and that would be Ohio State, which it has a stated 20.3 value of their NIL. You also have Texas, which is the top, 22.3 million. We don't know Notre Dame's status, and we'll get to that in a minute. And Penn State, kind of the Cinderella, so to speak, of what's going on, only has a budget of 13.8. That's what they put out there as far as what, the amount of money that they have to spend. The reason I said Notre Dame, we really don't know, is because this is something the guys and I talked about before the show began, is that something that was unbeknownst to me, and maybe you guys out there didn't know this either, or maybe you did, but if you are a private school participating in the collegiate football world, you are not required to disclose your finances publicly, and that would include your NIL money. So basically, 3 of the teams that were in the 12th playoff were private, and that would be Notre Dame, SMU, and Boise State. And so we have no idea what kind of NIL money that they are playing with.
Hollis, I see you shaking your head, but here's what I'm trying to figure out. Like when we start, first of all, let me make it clear. I am absolutely against the way NIL structure is now. Yeah. I'm okay with players getting paid, but I'm not okay at all with the way NIL is working, the way that it's working. What I don't understand, Hollis, is how do you take, let's say, Ohio State, and they're ranking the top in NIL money when they were already getting the top athletes in the country. So now, is this just going to go to whoever's got the most money? Whatever the best teams, they're going to get the best players, and why wouldn't they be the best teams?
Well, I mean, that's kind of, and from Lisa's research, that's exactly what's happening.
That's exactly what's happening.
But my problem with this is, again, I don't have an issue with players getting paid, but what I have an issue with is that we're still letting the NCAA off the hook. Because, again, if you go back...
Before you finish that... You can tell the tone switched in his voice right now. So we know this is something that's really important that he's got to get out of here.
Because we're letting them off the hook because of the numbers that Lisa quoted. Again, those numbers are coming from third parties, coming from boosters, coming from collectives. They're coming from generally maybe with the school, outside the school. They're not coming from the NCAA. And again, if you go back and read the Ed O'Bannon, the former UCLA basketball player's original lawsuit, it was about getting that name and image and likeness that was coming from the video games, that was coming from the jersey sales, ticket sales, TV contracts and everything, and have a split revenue model with the NCAA, the conferences, and the schools. And now we're at a point where we're having all this money thrown out, and the NCAA still does not have to chip in, which creates a market in which it's a free for all and there's no caps. And again, to the victor's going to be the spoils.
Exactly.
So whoever got the most money, or the other way, from the spoils is going to create the victors.
Right. So this rant is truly about NCAA because they don't want to give up any of the money that they're making.
100%.
So
they don't want to share. Yeah,
they don't want to share.
They don't want to share.
They don't want to share that money, and I want to make sure everybody is understanding exactly what Hollis is saying, because this money, this NIL money, is not league money. It's not television money. It's not seeding. It's not any of that kind of stuff. All of that is somewhere else. The players are not getting
it.
This is required from boosters and businesses and, But I'll say this, and I don't remember what this guy's name, but he's the guy who's saying that these billionaire people.
I think it's the owner of the
Bucks.
Of the Bucks.
Okay.
The Bucks basketball, NBA basketball team.
Right.
He said this.
Yeah, and I'm not okay with.
Well, what did he say?
But he's talking about like owning these teams, buying these privatizing these football teams. Like that's just an amateur pro league.
Well, that's what it is.
That's what it is now.
But we're doing everything to push it away from being collegiate sports. We're breaking all the rules that were once solid, like you making money, getting money in college ball. That was the worst thing ever.
Well, some schools even got the death penalty if they found out that the boosters were giving a kid or a car or some money on the side or whatever.
And some of those were kids who actually financially needed money.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a situation in which the NCAA created this monster. Because all they had, again, 10, 15 years ago, kids were not asking for millions and millions of dollars. Kids were literally asking for $5,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month. They were asking for money to, number one, live, and asking for splits on revenues that they seen coming in. They weren't asking for all this money. They just wanted their piece of the pie. And because of the NCAA, the conferences, the schools, their greed, it created a situation, and now we have a free-flowing market. We have a capitalistic, collegiate sort of deal where it's going to be hard to turn back the hands of time and go back to something that's reasonable. Other than probably, I think the only thing that's going to probably work is having a cap. But then once you have a cap, you're going to have unions, and you're going to create a situation in which the billionaire from the Bucks, the owner, I think he may have some truth there where these corporations going to come in and say, hey, we're going to just sponsor Notre Dame now. We're going to give you X amount of dollars for your basketball, football team, and this is what it is. You're going to wear our logo and different things of that nature.
And do you think, though, Hollis, do you think it's going to be those Notre Dames in Georgia that will take advantage of that, or is it going to be the schools that right now are struggling financially just to keep their team afloat?
Well, I would ask it in reverse. If you're a corporation, would you want to sponsor, Minnesota Tech, or would you want to go to Georgia?
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But would Georgia be? Here's the other side of it. Would Georgia be interested in being bought out? Would their boosters, would their alumni be okay with that? Because they have tradition. They have, they have their own college, following. Do you really think those people that are giving to the NIL, would they be kind of swept aside whenever these people come in and buy and privatize?
I think what would happen is Georgia, Tennessee, they may not be interested, but maybe a Vanderbilt would. Maybe a Eastern Carolina would. Maybe somebody is going to open the door for it, and then they're going to say, hey, I'm not leaving all that money on the table. I'm coming back. Because, again, we have to remember the economics of college, too. Right? Because when we talk about sports, it's just not about the sports. It's about the economic of university and college. That's dramatically changing.
Okay, but let me ask this question.
And it's going corporatized.
So
it's happening.
If I sell my team to you as the billionaire, you're going to build us a new stadium. You're going to fund football.
Well, and probably all sports, maybe a lot of different.
Maybe, but let's just for this conversation, you're gonna own football.
Yeah.
You're not owning football because you want to create not necessarily wins. Mm-hmm. You're buying football to get revenue coming back to you. My question is the argument that I have in that I can't make sense of. Football is my money making tool in collegiate sport. It is the cash cow.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm going to sell it for a big whopping number so I'm going to have this big whopping number.
Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Right now. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be forever? Because
I'm sure they'll have like different arrangements. I mean, just like
a contract.
Yeah, like your contract. Like you have naming rights to the statement. And I would argue the point that if a corporation's coming to buy like Georgia football or WU football, they're coming they want some wins. Because that's how you're going to.
That's how you make your money.
That's how you're going to get the fan base. Because college sports is different than professional sport because fan bases are generally a little bit more loyal.
I see.
But you're going to have to win in order to be sustainable. The Cowboys and the Lakers, probably, and the Yankees, the three most valuable franchises in sports, they have histories of winning. And if they don't have those histories of winning, then they don't have the valuation today. So you got to win.
What scares me in this is, what do you do? Okay, so we don't win. So is that we firing the coach? What are we like? What are we doing? Like, how are we processing what we need? Because it isn't always the coach. Sometimes you just don't have the players.
I don't think that changes, though. I don't think that changes than what it is now. It's like if you're not winning, the coach is gone. I mean, it may be quicker.
I see what Carl's saying. Is it going to be somebody? Is the corporation going to be in charge of hiring the coach rather than the admin of the school and firing?
See, I think that's a challenge.
I think if you buy the team, you buy it all.
Well, I would think so. If I've got that $1 billion and I drop that $1 billion for that team, I want to make every decision, or I'm going to place you and Hollis and whoever I think who will work with me.
It's like a general manager in the NFL, pretty much.
Yes.
I mean, they would have somebody.
I just don't know.
They're going to have a say.
Yeah.
I would definitely say that.
But I don't think that you can always control winning in college without money. You know what I'm saying? Without like you can't always. I mean, we know Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, those teams have had histories of building, their
brand.
Their brand. And once they got that brand, now you want to go to that brand. But for anybody else, for everybody else, how does Marshall get a Alabama type player?
They can't.
You're not. Unless you have
it's going to be the opposite.
I was going to say, what about that corporation? Because let's say Alabama's giving me $10, but there's a corporation who owns Marshall who's saying, hey, we'll give you $50.
I mean, I think that's the only way. And again, as of now with NIL, and Lisa pointed out perfectly, you're not getting those players now unless you can actually afford to get those players. So sort of the I wouldn't say, and again, and we can say it's kind of always been like this, because if you look at different levels of college football, one level would have a certain amount of scholarships.
Yeah, that's true.
Different schools would have scholarships.
Yeah.
And you would have more money. If you had boosters, they would contribute to the program differently. So it's kind of always been like is that now it's just on Front Street where we're not talking about scholarships. We're not talking about gear. We're talking about actually putting money in the hands of players. So it becomes different. And to Lisa's point, what we talked about earlier, it gets more egregious, and that's the part that I don't like, is that the siphoning of players, right?
Right.
Because I think once corporations will get involved, and I think if and we're talking hypothetically, if they were ever to get involved, I think that's something that they would cut off, because they're not going to have you sign this great player. He has 2 or 3 great years, then he goes to the next school. That's not going to happen if corporations get involved. There will be tampering, and the rules will be more hard line. I guarantee you.
So it's signing.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're signing for lack of a better term, a pro contract, right? So if you're I'm going to play at Marshall, and I'm going to play for X amount of years for X amount of dollars.
So do you think that with this possible scenario on the horizon, do you think that will just negate scholarships? Why should we even have scholarships for education when we're just going to pay the players anyway?
I think that's going to be done.
Yeah, I think
that's done.
I think not. I think the you have to go to class that. I think that's going to be over with.
That's not even going to be part of it.
I think I asked you guys this question.
Especially if the corporations.
Yeah.
I think I asked you guys this question maybe a while back, because we were maybe talking about something similar to this. And I asked you, when is the last time you've ever heard of an athlete flunking out of school?
That doesn't happen.
That's
now,
10 years ago, maybe? I mean, I can't even remember.
I mean, and I'm not saying that, that there's something fishy about that. I'm not saying that athletes are dumb. I'm one of those that was specifically just interested in football. So, but the possibility of an athlete flunking out was a reality back then. How is that not happening?
I'm a college professor, and I'm saying that the resources and tools you have now, if you flunking out, it's because you want to, and it ain't got nothing to do with how bright you are, how smart you are. What's your background?
Is some of this too because you can find
it's too much resources.
Okay.
Google.
Yeah.
It's Grammarly.
AI.
It's AI. It's Chat GPT. If you're flunking out now, you're trying hard to flunk out. So you shouldn't be flunking out. I'll say that.
So that's virtually impossible to do.
You just shouldn't be. If you're flunking out, you trying really hard to flunk out. Plus, when you go to the LSUs, the Ohio States, WV, they got tutors, they got this, they got that.
Yeah.
There's just too many resources.
Well, let me bring this up, because this is kind of on my mind. It just kind of popped into my head. But so we're looking at right now, the whole scene is the private schools do not have to disclose, their finances. What happens when the corporations come in? Are they going to be required to put out how much money they're spending for a school 100%. Or a program, or is that going to be considered private?
I would think
because this is private.
I would think that they'd have to own that, whatever dollars that you put in.
But how's that different from a private school already? If you come in as a private company and own a school, why would you be required to show your finances when a private school isn't required to?
Because now you have stakeholders. Those corporations coming in, they have shareholders and stakeholders. So it's going to be open unless you're a private corporation. Now you're mixing public and private. So I'm saying, and I think what happens is once you have those private corporations coming in, I really don't think that might be a bad thing considering where we're going. I really don't. Because the process is going to be streamlined. And it ain't going to be none of this hide the ball type of stuff.
Well, see, I think some of these people they want to know they own Alabama.
For sure.
They want, they don't.
But it's a question of whether Alabama wants to be for sale. That's what I'm saying. When you've got the massive amounts of alumni and boosters that you're talking about at these Alabamas and Notre Dames, that's a whole different ballgame. They really don't have to sell out. They don't. They're okay right now. Now, if it comes a time when these other schools are catching up with them, then they might have to consider it.
So,
but I guess to that point, but at what point do you get a giving fatigue? So if I'm in a booster at Alabama or Ohio, at what point do I say, dang, am I going to keep giving millions
you keep
of
winning, your pockets are deep. I don't think you ever get tired.
But you get nothing back. Like, you're not getting a return on that other than just saying, hey, I contributed and we won. So at what point do you, you just not want to keep giving?
Right now. I think that's where it is right now. I think those people do not want. Well, I don't want to throw a group of people into one bunch, but I think there are folks out there, billionaire folks out there, who want to. They don't mind putting the money up because they have a way to get it back. They want to have an access to get it back.
It's not so much about making a profit. It's about your ego. It's about saying, hey, I own the
Well, I think that could be true, too. I mean, Hollis,
like
I own
Mark
Alabama.
Cuban. He doesn't need any more money. I mean, you're talking about people that already have enough money that it's just, this is fun money. This is just something to do and tell your buddies at happy hour, hey, guess what? I just bought the.
I don't know if those dudes
Fighting
operate
Irish.
like that.
I'm going to kind of slide over here with Hollis because I think it is about ego. I think it's a lot about ego, But you can't go to Alabama. You can't. I dare you to buy Alabama and not win. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no. I'm not saying that. I'm saying just in general, whenever they go to purchase a team, I don't think the front running thing in their brain is, I need to make a profit. I think it's more for fun up front. Yeah, if they start losing money, but I think up front, I don't know.
I think that's on an individual basis. But when you're
it depends
talking
how
about
much money you have.
But when we talk about a corporation, if I'm such and such LLC, if I'm such and such Inc., and I'm purchasing Georgia, Alabama, whoever, then it's part of my due diligence to make sure I get a return on that profit.
So the return
because I have shareholders.
Wouldn't it be return would be like being the TV, the TV profits,
stuff like that.
Yeah,
I need a piece of that.
Even if they're not winning.
Yeah,
they can get
a piece of that.
They can get it. Yeah,
because there were years Notre Dame was not that good.
I need ticket sales.
You see what I mean?
Right.
And they still had that image that
you're going to get
need concession, ticket sales,
all that.
I need apparel. I need all that.
So the school, you think they just completely give control over, right? Is that what we're looking at?
To me,
if they buy it, it's yours.
If you buy it, it's yours.
Okay.
Now, what that negotiation means is, what am I? Okay, as me coming in as the buyer and Hollis is the president of the school.
Right.
I'm saying, look, I'm interested in buying your football team $100 billion. And you say, okay, I'm good. Now, what's the details? I want to have control of staffing, da-da-da-da. Now, Hollis's
But there's only so many schools to own. So.
Yes, but Hollis's answers are going to be what's going to matter to me, because I don't think that's an easy conversation. I don't see you as the president thinking that you're going to give up all of this control. You still have to be the president of the university, and you still got to be able to say, this is no, this is okay. No, don't ever do that again. You got to have that control, and I'm not sure billionaires are okay with
that's what I'm saying.
That control.
And what would the NCAA do with that? I mean, can you imagine?
What could they do?
I mean, would they just, I don't know, would they just disappear because there wouldn't be really, what would they control?
What if you get in a conference? What if you get in a conference and every conference has been bought up by a booster? Why do I need the NCAA? What I need you for?
I think the days of the NCAA, I think the days of conference is coming to an end shortly. I'm
curious.
I do not believe that once you have this money vested from third parties coming in, once you allow the sort of the wolves to come into the hen's den, they're not going to play by these antiquated rules that you have set forth. They don't care about this player maybe having a 2.0 or this or that or these little just ticky-tacky rules. I think once you allow that level of money to come in, these entities are going to be gone. Now, again, they still may be able to work at the lower levels, maybe the D2s, the D3s, but we're even seeing JUCOs now, right? That whole landscape is changing. And I think once the corporation comes, they're coming for it all.
Do you think at some point, this will affect NFL draft? Because these kids are making NFL type money. Some of these kids.
It already has. And
I would say this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I need a 7th round pick, a 6th pick, 7th round, and I've been making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's a kid from Southern. I want to say Ole Miss. He was projected to be a 2nd, 3rd round pick. He had enough NIL money stacked up where he's going to veterinarian school. So I think I seen another kid. He's playing like the G League. He's a basketball player where he had enough NIL money to invest in a hotel. He ain't in a rush to get to the NBA as far as just money's concerned.
Right.
That's crazy. Let me just say this because I know that there's been a lot of stuff going on here, kind of side of our show. The situation in New Orleans. We just want to give a little bit of a shout out, prayer to all of those folks. I know I've been to New Orleans. I've been on Bourbon Street. I can't even imagine, what that could be like with a car going down Bourbon Street. Because anybody who's ever been to the Mardi Gras, anybody's been to anything down there on Bourbon Street, it's packed, man.
Right.
And it's virtually impossible. So we need to give them a shout out.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Comment on episodes or suggest topics at our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation.
Let's face it, bad things happen to good people. Seriously injured in a car accident, trucking accident, injured in a grocery store, or even wrongfully arrested or falsely accused of a crime. Life happens, and when it happens to you, you will need sound legal advice and aggressive representation. That's when you call attorney Frank Walker at 304-413-0179. That's 304-413-0179. Lock it in your phone, text it to a friend. 304-413-0179. Or visit online at attorneyfrankwalker.com.
Find previous episodes of Let's Talk at WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. This is Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Now, back to the conversation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here at Let's Talk, and I have my co-host Hollis Lewis and Lisa Odie.
Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
We're gonna drastically shift gears. I don't know if we're ever gonna come to an end on that one. But again, I don't know if we ever actually completely agree to any subject that we have. Hollis, me and you had talked a little bit about all of a sudden there's this influx of former players.
Yeah.
Becoming coaches, and
you were sort of like the pioneer of this, right? When you're talking about former players going to smaller schools, specifically HBCUs in this case. So you have Deshaun Jackson, he's going to Delaware State. Mike Vick's going to Norfolk. We have Eddie George at TSU. We have Dion went to Jackson State. Tyrone Wheatley back in the day, I think he was at Morgan. I think he still may be there. So being a player who took that path, what was kind of the thinking, and what advice would you have for those players who taking on this endeavor?
Well, I don't know if I get to be considered the spearheading this this thing. I did it a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah, I did it a long time ago.
And I want to say specifically in communities that what you had in common was you did it in communities that you were connected to. Right. So even Delaware State with Deshaun Jackson, he played in Philadelphia. They're close in proximity. Obviously Norfolk, Michael Vick, Eddie George, Tennessee. So it was communities in which you were connected to.
I think one of the interesting things, and what I truly loved about the idea of going to West Virginia State, and I'm going to assume that this is part of their thinking, was that it was an HBCU. Mm-hmm. And during that time, to even remotely have a chance at a head coaching job, that's probably the only place that was going to happen. And not saying that you had to go through, that there's a negative piece of going through the system, but I think HBCUs, they embrace, it is color based, and they base that on former athletes. And all of a sudden, when you start getting professional athletes who are interested in coaching,
Coach Huff started at HBCU. Now we
right.
Yes, and so you just that I think that's just for me. I thought it was the greatest thing ever, and forget the reality of what state was, what its records were, and all that kind of stuff. To coach and actually have a chance to have hands-on with young black athletes, and not that we weren't all black, but having the opportunity to recruit, see where they're coming from, know what they're dealing with. To me, that was, I don't know if there's anything better than that. And you'll stay there for as long as you possibly can until maybe another opportunity where you're almost forced to go. I think a lot of these former professional athletes, this is a great start. They may spend 2, 3, 4 years there, and someone, whether it's another college or whether it's a professional team, they're going to call them up based on their success. Some of the, and as well as I know, every HBCU don't pay. There's not a lot of money into the program.
It's prestige.
Yeah.
And so that was my other question. So coming from the NFL, where you have all the resources, you have all the things, and then going to, whether it's HBCU or just a smaller school, you're going to a small school where you don't have the money, you don't have the resource. That had to kind of be that had to be difficult to navigate.
There was some really, 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 really difficult conversations, some huge arguments, some like, I'm pretty relaxed and calm, and in most cases, but I will say at West Virginia State, I probably fought harder for just some things that I thought would be normal than that I probably fought for in my entire life. And all of it for the sake and the benefit of not winning, but making a former athlete love West Virginia State College, West Virginia State University now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted players to when you leave, win, lose, or draw, I wanted you to feel like this is where you were and you're proud of it. Yeah. Not just because it was just black, but because you were an athlete and you played on a team. I don't care, because I didn't win at Marshall, so I felt like winning wasn't the most important thing as long as you got the life lessons that you were forced into dealing with, the life lessons that the game is supposed to teach. And to me, as you know, I was all over those lessons. Mm-hmm.
And an opportunity to get a college degree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because NIL really didn't play a factor when you
Definitely
were there
Not at all.
So,
Scholarships
that
didn't
was
even.
the other side of it.
Scholarships wasn't even a rule.
So my question is to this is why, I know you mentioned you had these hard conversations and arguments. Why do you feel like you had to fight so hard and have to go through those things in order to get what you needed for your players?
This is gonna. I'm going to say this.
I mean, you don't have to answer that.
No. I
want
want to answer.
I want to. Yeah. Okay.
I want to answer.
You don't have to answer it.
I want to answer. See, I think if you're not in athletics, if you're not athletically structured, and you understand it, you understand what a coach is doing, what a player's doing, how those relationships are built, how that future of that athlete is how you teach him how to do these things, how you're making him be on time for practice, you're making him be on time for this, not
discipline,
not just for practice, but for future.
Right.
And I felt like there was a lot of people who had a lot of hands into the sports programs who didn't understand that. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to convince them, like, look, these young men that are playing football, they need something. They need something to motivate them, something to make them understand to stay here. And the only way you're going to stay here is money. And
right.
I don't mean NIL money. No. I mean scholarship money.
Right.
I mean, when I first got there, I don't even think we had no full scholarships, none. And so for me, I'm hitting everybody possible. And shout out to Sterling Sharp, who was coming to West Virginia State spring ball. Yep. Bought our uniforms home and away. That speaks volumes.
He had the SS on him too. So he was the first corporate.
I like
it.
First corporate.
Yeah. And that's something that is like super, super special.
Right.
And for those guys to see him showing up, that's everything. Because at that point, like he was a guy. Like he was the guy. And coming in and he's yelling and he's screaming, cussing and everything,
yeah. So let me ask this. So like coming from fresh being, because I think you were a player, you did a year of TV, then you go right into coaching.
Yes.
And I think football is unique in that you need some experience coaching before you take on the head coaching job.
Yes.
I'm just going to stand by that. I think it's very difficult to transit, particularly at a collegiate program, because even when we think of Deion, right? Deion had been coaching his sons from Little League basically on through.
Yeah.
So he had years and years of experience prior to him becoming a collegiate head coach. So do you kind of, in retrospect, do you think do you wish, or do you think that could have helped just being an assistant for a little while and then jumping in?
To be honest, I wish that Coach Earl Monroe, who was a guy that I hired, who was on the staff prior to, and he had been coaching there forever. I really wish I would have been his assistant. Started out at that, and then eventually let my career go from there. I wish I didn't necessarily take the head job. I could have taken the DB job. I could have taken an assistant, coach on the, Coach Monroe probably could have been the head coach, and D coordinator. I could have been just the DB coach. I would have been happy with that. Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't
that
your
wasn't
choice,
what that,
right?
that wasn't the call that I got.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
And so all I was thinking about was like, is this actually really possible? And what I knew about coaching was how I had been coached.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, how will I coach? I will coach the way that I was coached. And while I think that does work, mm-hmm. and I think, and Hollis can attest to this, he may not have needed it, but I think he can appreciate it now. Now, I that's how I'm hoping that is, but I don't know if that's the truth. I don't know.
He looks like he might still be holding a grudge over there.
Because you know what? Because I'm really shocked too. And I know that there are some guys who, I know for a fact that there's a few guys who, to this day, do not particularly care for me because I was a coach. But I know when I come down to State's homecoming and I see a lot of guys, there's a lot of joy. There's a lot of genuine appreciation, and guys they'll thank me for being who I was, and I was the guy who they needed most. And there's a few guys, and you know who they are.
Yeah,
I won't throw their names out there, that who the school didn't even have trust in,
right?
and wanted them to be gone. And my fight was no, we can't. No,
That's not happening.
We need to keep them here, and they all graduated.
That's great.
And they're all successful.
Right.
And to me, that's really all that mattered to me.
Right.
I wasn't really worried about, because I'll take the losses, and say that the players were great and it's just bad coaching. I can handle that. That's all. But what I know now is when I look at these guys, a guy who they really, really, really wanted to throw out, they wanted to get him out, and he was practically gone. I went to bat for him.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody said anything when he graduated. Ain't nobody talking about him, how successful he is now as a teacher, all this kind of stuff.
Right.
Nobody wants to say, well, you know what, Carl, you were right.
You were right. Yeah.
No.
That's a hard thing for people to.
He's on the street. If
right.
that fight doesn't happen, he's on the street.
Without a chance.
Mm-hmm. So to me, I'm not saying all HBCUs are in that situation, but that's the situation that I took on at West Virginia State, and I feel like I won now.
And I'm getting out of that. Like, far as your advice to these coaches taking on these jobs at these smaller schools, is the advice is that what you think of a win has got to be different. It's not just about what happens on the field. It's kind of the players that you're mentoring and you're developing and different things of that nature.
Yes, somewhat, but somebody's gonna come knocking. Coach Bob Pruitt called me several times to come to Marshall while he was at Marshall. I couldn't go. I love Coach Pruitt. I love him. Mm-hmm. I couldn't leave my guys. More money, future at Marshall, all of those kind of things. Learning the things that I could have learned from Coach Pruitt.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I wouldn't leave. I had two different opportunities to leave. I refused to go because it meant more for me to touch you than for me to say, "Oh gosh, my career."
I think that's a different mentality. I don't know if
that's priorities, don't you think?
But priorities is like, did you want to climb the coaching ladder?
Like,
I don't
that wasn't
know if that's
your
what you
goal,
wanted.
right? That wasn't when you took that job at State. Your goal wasn't to get from here to there, from point A
I never
to point
thought
B.
I had not really thought about coaching.
It was to change lives.
Yeah. But once the opportunity came to me, I can remember when it was a young lady who called me and said, hey, she was on the committee. She was saying, hey, we're looking for a head coach. Would you be interested in being the head coach? And I was like, really? And the very first thing that I thought about was like, all right, this is a chance to actually touch young men. How do I pass that up? Mm-hmm. If it's football, I know how I was in football. I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of guys like me. And again, it never bothered me what the record was. I never sit around and worried about, like in the interviews, how are you going to turn the program around? If I graduate kids, young men, I've turned the program around.
Right.
I won't get, and this was what I would always say. I will not be judged on my wins and losses. It'll be about the lives that I create or assist.
And I think, and don't you think, Hollis, at that level, you can do that? I mean, there's not as much money involved. There's not as much alumni involved. There's not as much expectation involved, I would think. So when you're comparing, a smaller school like State or even, the smaller schools in West Virginia to the WVUs and Marshalls.
Right.
You have that luxury because the fan base is probably not as large, probably, right? Yeah. And it's not about the money. There's not a whole lot of money that you've got anyway to work with.
Right.
So not that the expectations are, to have a losing season, but the expectations are not quite as high as they would be at a larger school with more money.
I can't get 10 years. I wouldn't have gotten, I coached for 10 years. I don't think I would have gotten the 10 years if I hadn't have raised the money that I was raising.
So you were having to do it all.
Yeah.
Not just coach.
And I think at a smaller school, particularly at a school like State, I think winning helps.
Yes.
Everything.
Winning helps, right. Yes.
Winning helps everything. And I think, it's definitely a part of it. But I think also, to your point, Lisa, when you are at a smaller school and you're graduating guys and guys are coming back and guys are going into the Hall of Fame and you're seeing this legacy of players that, succeeding. And I think in retrospect, you have a lot of maybe some of the detractors that's going to look back and say, well, look at all these guys who are who are coaches now who are doing all these things. So I think that's it's sort of
that's
a double-edged
your reward.
thing.
That's your reward.
But I will say winning always
matters.
Winning always matters.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And we had some guys who were player of the year, defensive player of the year, some defensive backs who were all conference and all of that.
And I think now, and unfortunately now, even at the lower levels now, winning is omnipresent. Like you gotta win now.
Yes,
It's not like it was back in the day.
No,
you have to win now, even at D3, whatever.
And this goes back to you all's point about when I asked the question about when's the last time somebody flunked out. Because of all the things that you have, that you can get your schoolwork done, you don't have to worry about your GPA and all that kind of stuff. Then you in turn better show up in football.
You better show up in football.
Right.
You better show up.
Right.
And let me ask this. So just to switch gears, right? I'm basing this off of what happened in the Texas and Arizona game, right? So you was late in the game, and you had what many believe should have been a targeting call, right? And when I look at sports, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, we'll take those three professional sports. To me, it's getting increasingly hard to watch, and I think I don't know what has to be done, but it just seems like the officiating, because now, back in the day, we didn't know officiating name. There's like a fourth commentator who's the official who's going to have to explain all these complicated rules. And I think it's going to just lead to people being turned off by the game, because I believe sports are over officiated. And it's over officiated. Then we have egregious calls that are not called could be game changing, and it's just changing the complexion of the sports. Even like I was watching the game, and it was a meaningless bowl game. You had the guys who had never got in the game because all the other players sit out the bowl game. They score a sighting touchdown. Then you can't even celebrate because we got to wait to confirm if it's a touchdown. So it's like, what is the balance between like the over officiating and wanting to get into calls right?
And I remember specifically this play, Hollis, that you're talking about. Did they throw a flag, or was it initiated by the booth to review the targeting call? I'm thinking like the officials didn't even throw a flag. It was the booth that initiated the review, which stopped the whole momentum of the game.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, here's another line you don't cross. If the officials are not calling something, then the booth has no business coming down and saying this is what we see we need, because that's just another set of officials up in the air that. That's
what I'm saying. You got like 4 levels of officiating.
Yes, we don't need that.
It's like it's just too much.
And it did look like a targeting call. I don't know what you thought, and they didn't call it, but it did look like
it wasn't a call because it's a bang bang play.
Right.
But I mean, it was a targeting call.
Yes.
But it's one of those things where
but if they didn't call it on the field, it wasn't.
It wasn't intentional.
But if they didn't call it on the field, they have no business calling it from the booth.
But I just think the game, and I'm saying sports in general, it's taking the passion out of the game. I mean, you look at the basketball players. Remember, guys used to dunk and then look at the guy. You can't even do that. Baseball players, I mean, the umpire, the manager can't say anything.
They can dance though as a team, like the Vikings do when they score and win.
Don't call us out.
Just the passion of the game and the excitement it's just done with just over officiating.
Yeah, it's a lot.
All right, you two have said a lot. Okay, now
Girls like
I'm gonna. Okay, as from being a player and then coaching, my acceptance of calls, right or wrong, just is what it is. You know how I was. Don't say anything to the officials. Nothing. We just will play. There were interference calls that I had in the league in high school that I'd make the case that there's no way. No way. But they are what they are. There's no reason for me to jump up and shout and do all that kind of stuff. Do officials make bad calls? Absolutely.
But it's not bad calls,
but however you want to define it.
Over officiating.
Over officiating.
Yeah.
What's the rules? I mean, there's too many.
There's too
many rules.
Too many rules.
Okay, so to your point, I would make the case the opportunity to make a pass interference call. There's all kinds of ways that you could make a pass interference, that you could throw a flag for pass interference that to me doesn't necessarily.
They could call holding almost every play
time
of a football game.
Every time the receiver and the DB make contact, the receiver or the DB is grabbing his jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So every single time there's contact, you could call hold. Okay? Now, my thing is, you're going for the ball. Supposedly, the rule supposedly states the ball's free in the air. And you as a wide receiver, you don't have access. You ain't first to get to it. I can have the right to go to it myself as a defender. Mm-hmm. Now, however I go there, now that can depend on if I bump you trying to get to the ball, they may call me.
Well, I'm not.
But again, that's over.
I don't mean those subjective calls. I mean what I'm saying is that you are officiating the passion of the game out of it. Where it was a crackback, right? So I'm watching it. The guy's returning a punt, and the guy returning the punt, he's watching his teammate coming by the crack,
lining it up,
and he's literally saying to his teammate, don't do that. He's officiating his teammate on the field, saying, don't crack him, don't crack him. And the teammate just, kind of brushes the guy so he doesn't get the call. And I'm saying, like, the hard hits, the dunks, the home runs, the
celebrations.
The celebrations. And I don't mean like the coordinated celebrations. I just mean those in the moment. Just being excited about the game.
But my question,
passion out of the game is, and I'm saying part of the corporatizing of this is just going to be guys walking up and down the court being robots, and it's hard to watch.
Almost that way now.
I don't know if. I don't think those plays are in the moment. Like I don't think all those I think like
is.
When I'm scoring this touchdown, I'm going to do this dance.
No, I don't mean that. I'm saying if a guy's coming across the middle, you crack him, get the fumble, and you recover the fumble. That's not something you plan. That's something instinctually you did. You get up, you growl, you go crack. You're not
and then
having
you get
a
called
dance
for excessive
You're
celebration.
not dancing. You're growling. You're doing the Tom Brady. You're passionate about that moment. This is the stuff that's getting just over officiated. Like I said, it's a rule for every freaking rule. It's a rule for the rule.
He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
All right, we got about 3 minutes. I'm going to still try to make the case that I think individual players always have the opportunity to think about that celebration. I do now. I don't think it was back in the day. I do think now that it is a goal for them to. I want to make a big play and then celebrate some kind of way.
Don't you think there's a difference between celebrating your play and something that you did that you excelled on the field at and taunting someone? I think there's a difference. Like, I think it's okay if you catch that touchdown ball and you're, kind of dancing around and doing your thing by yourself and without your teammates. That should not be a penalty. But if you get in the other guy's face and is going, doing all the hand motions and kind of pointing and taunting. I think that should be a penalty.
I'm talking about the middle of that. So I'm saying if you catch a lob and you just dunk on somebody.
Remember, he's a flag planter. Right? We've got to remember what we're hearing here.
If you ever dunked in a basketball game or you hit a home run, right? So if I dunk on somebody in the game and I just and they just happen to be there, or I stand over them, do the Michael Jordan stare down. Like, I'm not trying to taunt that guy. I'm just excited in the moment. And I'm saying these are the things that are just getting officiated out of the way. And like, in addition to just having I couldn't imagine reading the NFL or NBA handbook, like official book.
All the rules.
It's probably thick as an encyclopedia because it's just rules on rules. And I'm just saying there's too many rules, and officials have too big a part in sports now, and they got to scale that back.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, there's Hollis Lewis ranting against the officials. But we got to get out of here. We'll see you again next week.